The rain hammered against the windshield of Marcus Chun's delivery truck as he navigated the empty streets of downtown Seattle at 2:47 a.m. Most people were asleep, wrapped in warm beds, but Marcus had been driving these same routes for 3 years now, delivering fresh bread to coffee shops and restaurants across the city. The night shift paid better, and with a 6-year-old daughter depending on him, every extra dollar mattered. He was thinking about Emma's upcoming school field trip to the Science Museum when he spotted the silver Mercedes pulled over on the side of Pine Street. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The hazard lights blinked weakly through the downpour, and something about the scene made him slow down. Marcus had always been the type to stop for stranded motorists, a habit his late wife Sarah had both loved and worried about. As he pulled his truck behind the luxury car, he could see a figure hunched over the steering wheel. The person wasn't moving, and alarm bells went off in his head. Marcus grabbed his emergency flashlight and rain jacket, then stepped out into the storm. The woman in the driver's seat was crying. Not the quiet, dignified tears of someone having a bad day, but the kind of raw, body-shaking sobs that spoke of something deeper breaking apart. Marcus knocked gently on the window, and when she looked up, he saw eyes that seemed to hold the weight of the world. She was probably in her early 30s, with perfectly styled blonde hair that had begun to come undone, and makeup that streaked down her cheeks in dark rivulets. Her clothes screamed expensive, a tailored blazer, silk blouse, and what looked like a designer handbag clutched in her lap. Everything about her suggested success and control, which made the vulnerability of the moment even more striking. The window rolled down slowly, and Marcus found himself looking into the face of someone who seemed utterly lost, despite clearly having everything money could buy. Her voice was hoarse when she spoke, barely audible over the sound of rain hitting the pavement. "I'm sorry," she whispered, wiping at her eyes with the back of her hand. "I know this looks pathetic. I needed to pull over." Marcus knelt down beside the car, rain soaking through his jacket. "Are you hurt? Do you need me to call someone?" She shook her head quickly, almost frantically. No calls. "Please, I'm fine. I just need a minute." But she wasn't fine. Marcus had seen enough grief in his own life to recognize it in others. After Sarah's death 2 years ago, he'd spent plenty of nights crying in his own car, afraid to let Emma see him fall apart. There was something about this woman's pain that felt familiar, like looking into a mirror that reflected his own darkest moments. "Look, I'm not going anywhere until I know you're okay," Marcus said gently. "My name's Marcus. I've got a daughter about your age, and I'd want someone to check on her if she was out here alone on a night like this." The woman looked at him with surprise, as if kindness from a stranger was the last thing she'd expected. "You don't understand. I'm not your age. I'm 32. Marcus smiled despite the circumstances. "I meant someone's daughter. We're all somebody's kid, right?" For the first time since he'd approached the car, something softened in her expression. She studied his face, taking in the genuine concern there, the way he stayed crouched in the rain without complaint, the patience in his dark eyes. "I'm Victoria," she said finally. "Victoria Morrison." The name hit Marcus like a physical blow. Victoria Morrison. Even someone like him, who barely followed business news, knew that name. She was the CEO of Morrison Holdings, one of the largest tech companies in the Pacific Northwest. Her face had been on the cover of Fortune magazine just last month. The article had called her the Iron Lady of Silicon Valley, praising her for turning around a failing company and building it into a billion-dollar empire. And here she was, crying alone in her car at nearly 3 in the morning. Marcus tried to keep his surprise from showing. "Nice to meet you, Victoria. Bad night?" She let out a laugh that was more sob than humor. "Bad year, bad decade. Bad life. Choices. She looked at him again, really looked at him this time. "You're soaking wet. This is insane. You should go home to your daughter. Emma's with my neighbor. She's safe and warm, which is more than I can say for you right now." Marcus glanced around at the empty street. This isn't exactly the safest neighborhood to be broken down in. Victoria followed his gaze, seeming to notice her surroundings for the first time. The area was mostly industrial, with a few late-night bars and a corner store that had seen better days. Not the kind of place where a woman in expensive clothes wanted to be alone at this hour. "I wasn't thinking," she admitted. "I just started driving and ended up here." "Where were you coming from?" "The office." She gestured vaguely toward the downtown core. "I was working late and then I got a call, and—" Her voice trailed off, and fresh tears began to flow. Marcus stood up slowly, his knees protesting the position he'd been holding. "Victoria, I know we just met, but I think you could use somewhere warm and dry to figure things out. There's a 24-hour diner about 2 blocks from here. Coffee's terrible, but it's quiet and safe." She looked at him with a mixture of confusion and something that might have been hope. "Why are you helping me? You don't know me." "Because someone helped me once when I needed it most," Marcus said simply. "And because it's the right thing to do." Victoria stared at him for a long moment, then slowly nodded. "Okay, but I'm buying the coffee." Marcus waited while she gathered her things, then followed her Mercedes to the diner in his delivery truck. Mel's all-night cafe was exactly what it sounded like, a worn-down establishment with cracked vinyl booths and fluorescent lights that buzzed too loudly. But it was warm, and the elderly waitress didn't bat an eye when Victoria walked in looking like she'd been through a hurricane. They slid into a booth near the back, and Marcus ordered black coffee while Victoria asked for tea. She seemed to be pulling herself together, straightening her blazer and attempting to fix her hair, but her hands shook slightly as she wrapped them around the warm mug. "I owe you an explanation," she said quietly. "You don't owe me anything." "I do." Victoria took a sip of her tea, made a face at the taste, but continued drinking it anyway. "I'm not usually. This falling apart in public isn't exactly on brand for me." Marcus leaned back in his seat, studying her. Up close, he could see the exhaustion in her face, the way her shoulders carried tension like a physical weight. "What happened tonight?" Victoria was quiet for so long that Marcus thought she might not answer. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a manila envelope, thick with papers. She set it on the table between them like it was something dangerous. "I found this in my mother's things," she said. "She died 3 weeks ago, cancer. I've been going through her house, trying to settle her affairs, and I found this hidden in her bedroom." Marcus looked at the envelope but didn't touch it. "I'm sorry for your loss." "We weren't close," Victoria said quickly, then seemed to catch herself. "I mean, we were when I was little, but things changed. She had her life. I had mine. I saw her maybe twice a year, called on birthdays and holidays. I kept thinking there would be more time to fix things between us." The regret in her voice was palpable. Marcus knew that feeling well. He'd had his own complicated relationship with his parents before they died in a car accident when Emma was just a baby. "What's in the envelope?" he asked gently. Victoria's hands tightened around her mug. "Papers, legal documents." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Birth certificates and a letter. She looked up at him with eyes that held a pain so deep it was almost physical. "Marcus, I had a sister, a twin sister, and I never knew she existed." The words hung in the air between them like a confession. Marcus felt his chest tighten with the weight of her revelation. How is that possible? We were separated at birth, adopted by different families. The documents show that my adoptive parents knew about her. They chose to only take me. Victoria's voice cracked. Her name was Violet. She was adopted by a family in Portland. And she died 7 years ago. Marcus reached across the table and covered her hand with his. Victoria, I'm so sorry. I had a twin sister, and she died without ever knowing I existed. I had a chance to know her, to be part of her life, and I lost it because my parents decided to keep us apart. The tears were flowing again, but this time they seemed to come from a different place, not just grief, but anger. Do you know anything about her life? About what happened to her? Victoria nodded, reaching into the envelope with trembling fingers. She pulled out a photograph, old and slightly faded. It showed 2 identical baby girls lying side by side, both with blonde hair and the same button nose that Victoria had. On the back, someone had written Victoria and Violet Morrison, 6 months old. There's more, Victoria said, setting the photo down carefully. She was married, had a daughter. The daughter would be about 6 now. Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach. What was her daughter's name? Emma, Victoria whispered. Her name is Emma. The diner suddenly felt too small, too quiet. Marcus stared at Victoria, his mind racing through possibilities he didn't want to consider. Emma. His Emma. The daughter he'd raised alone since Sarah's death. The little girl who was the center of his universe. Marcus? Victoria's voice seemed to come from far away. Are you okay? He cleared his throat, trying to find his voice. Tell me about Emma's father. Victoria shuffled through the papers, pulling out what looked like a private investigator's report. His name was David Chun. He was a paramedic. He died in a car accident about 2 years ago. Marcus felt the world tilt sideways. David Chun. That was Sarah's first husband, Emma's biological father. The man who had died when Emma was just 4 years old, leaving Sarah to raise her alone until she met Marcus. Victoria, he said slowly, what was your sister's married name? She looked down at the papers. Chun. Violet Chun. Why? Marcus closed his eyes, trying to process what he was hearing. When he opened them, Victoria was staring at him with growing concern. I think, he said carefully, I might know your niece. Victoria's face went completely white. What do you mean? My late wife was Sarah Chun. She had a daughter. From her first marriage, Emma. Marcus pulled out his phone and showed Victoria his lock screen. A photo of him and Emma at the zoo, both grinning at the camera. She's been my daughter since she was 4 years old. I adopted her after Sarah, and I got married. Victoria stared at the photo, her hands shaking so badly that Marcus was afraid she might drop his phone. That's Violet. She looks exactly like Violet did at that age. Victoria, I think Emma is your niece. The words seemed to hit her like a physical blow. She leaned back in the booth, pressing her hand to her chest as if she couldn't breathe. My sister's daughter. She's been living here in Seattle this whole time. Marcus nodded, his own heart racing. Sarah told me that Emma's biological grandmother, that would be your mother, had tried to contact them once, but Sarah refused to allow it. She said Emma's biological family had made it clear they didn't want to be involved. That's not true, Victoria said quickly. My mother talked about Sarah and Emma all the time. She had photos of Emma on her refrigerator. She sent money for birthdays and Christmas, but Sarah always sent it back. Marcus felt a familiar anger building in his chest. Sarah had lied to him, had kept Emma from her only living family. But then he thought about the woman sitting across from him, the successful CEO who had everything money could buy, but was crying alone in her car at 3 a.m. Your mother tried to maintain contact? She begged to be part of Emma's life. She wrote letters, sent gifts, tried to call. But Sarah had legal custody and refused to allow any contact. Victoria's voice was getting stronger, more focused. My mother died believing she'd never see her granddaughter again. They sat in silence for a long moment, both processing the enormity of what they'd discovered. Marcus studied Victoria's face, seeing in her features a resemblance to Emma that he'd never noticed before. The same determined chin, the same way of tilting her head when she was thinking. "What happens now?" Victoria asked quietly. Marcus looked at the papers scattered across the table, at the photograph of two identical babies, at the woman who had just learned she had a family she never knew existed. "I don't know. This is bigger than either of us expected." "I want to meet her," Victoria said, and for the first time since he'd found her crying in her car, her voice held strength. "I want to meet my niece." Marcus felt protective instincts kick in, the same ones that had kept him awake nights when Emma had nightmares about losing another parent. She's been through a lot. She lost her biological father, then her mother. I'm the only stability she's had for the past 2 years. "I'm not trying to take her away from you," Victoria said quickly. I need to know her. She's the only family I have left." Marcus studied her face, seeing the desperation there, but also something else. A loneliness that matched his own. He thought about Emma, about how she sometimes asked about her real family, about whether she had any grandparents or aunts or uncles who might love her. "She asks about family sometimes," he admitted. "She knows about her biological parents, but she doesn't know about any extended family. I always told her it was just us." "But it's not," Victoria said. "She has me. She has a history, a legacy. She has a trust fund worth millions of dollars that my mother set up for her." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "A trust fund?" Victoria nodded, pulling out another document. "My mother left everything to Emma. The house, the investments, everything. She's been planning for this day for years, hoping that someday she'd be able to be part of Emma's life." Marcus stared at the papers, seeing numbers that made his head spin. Emma was rich. Not just comfortable, but wealthy beyond anything he could have imagined. And she didn't even know it. "Victoria, I need you to understand something. I've been raising Emma on a delivery driver's salary. We live in a small apartment, we shop at thrift stores, and I work nights so I can be home with her during the day. This information, it changes everything." "Does it?" Victoria asked. "You're still her father. You're still the man who's loved her and cared for her and kept her safe. Money doesn't change that." Marcus wanted to believe her, but he knew how the world worked. Victoria Morrison lived in a universe of private schools and trust funds and opportunities that Marcus could never provide. How could he compete with that? "I need to think about this," he said finally. "I need to figure out how to tell Emma, how to help her understand." Victoria reached across the table and took his hand. "We'll figure it out together. I may not know anything about being an aunt, but I know about being alone. I know about feeling like you're the only person in the world who cares about someone. And I know that Emma is lucky to have you." Marcus looked at her, seeing past the expensive clothes and the CEO persona to the woman underneath. The woman who had been crying in her car because she'd learned too late that she had a family she'd never known about. "There's something else," Victoria said quietly. "The investigator's report mentions that Violet was working on a project before she died. Something about finding our birth parents. She hired a private investigator to trace our origins." "Did she find anything?" Victoria nodded slowly. "We have a brother, a younger brother named Michael. He's 28, lives in San Francisco, and he has no idea we exist either." Marcus felt the world shift again. Emma didn't just have an aunt, she had an uncle too. A family that was bigger than either of them had imagined. "Have you contacted him?" "Not yet. I only found out about all of this tonight. I was sitting in my office, going through my mother's papers, and I couldn't handle it. I got in my car and started driving, and I ended up where you found me." Marcus looked at his watch. It was nearly 4 in the morning. In a few hours, he would need to pick up Emma from Mrs. Rodriguez's apartment and get her ready for school. He would need to look into the face of the little girl who had become his whole world and decide whether to tell her that everything she thought she knew about her family was wrong. "I have to go," he said. "I need to get Emma ready for school." Victoria nodded, but he could see the disappointment in her eyes. "Of course. I'm sorry for keeping you so long." "Don't apologize. This is important." Marcus stood up, then paused. "Victoria, what you found tonight, it's going to change all of our lives. Are you ready for that?" She looked at him with eyes that were no longer crying, but were filled with a determination he recognized. It was the same look Emma got when she was trying to solve a puzzle that was too hard for her, but she refused to give up. "I spent 32 years not knowing I had a sister. I'm not going to spend another day not knowing my niece." Marcus nodded, understanding the weight of her words. "I'll call you tomorrow. We'll figure this out." As he walked toward the door, Victoria called after him, "Marcus, thank you. For stopping, for listening, for everything." He turned back to her, seeing her sitting alone in the fluorescent-lit diner, surrounded by the papers that had shattered and rebuilt her understanding of who she was. "Thank you for trusting me with it." Outside, the rain had stopped, but the streets were still slick and shining under the streetlights. Marcus drove home through the quiet city, his mind racing with questions and possibilities. How do you tell a 6-year-old that she has family she's never met? How do you explain that the woman who raised her had kept secrets that changed everything? But more than that, how do you prepare yourself for the possibility that the child you've raised as your own might choose a life you can't provide? As he pulled into his apartment complex, Marcus saw the light on in Mrs. Rodriguez's window. She was probably up watching her morning shows, getting ready to wake Emma for school. Normal, everyday life was about to resume, but nothing would ever be the same. Marcus sat in his truck for a moment, looking up at the window where his daughter was sleeping, safe and loved and completely unaware that her world was about to expand in ways neither of them could have imagined. Tomorrow he would have to find the words to tell Emma about Victoria. He would have to help her understand that family was more complicated than either of them had realized, and that sometimes the people who love us most are the ones we've never met. But tonight, she was still just Emma, his Emma, the little girl who called him daddy and drew him pictures and needed him to check under her bed for monsters. Tomorrow, everything would change, but tonight, she was still his. Marcus locked his truck and walked toward the building, carrying with him the weight of secrets that would reshape their lives. In a few hours, he would hold Emma's hand as they walked to school, and he would begin the conversation that would introduce her to the family she'd never known she had. The rain had stopped, but Marcus could still feel the storm that was coming. And for the first time in years, he wasn't sure he was strong enough to protect Emma from it. As he climbed the stairs to his apartment, Marcus couldn't shake the image of Victoria Morrison sitting in that diner, surrounded by papers that told the story of a family torn apart by secrets and choices made by people who thought they knew best. Emma had an aunt who was one of the most powerful women in the Pacific Northwest. She had a trust fund worth millions of dollars. She had a legacy that stretched back to grandparents who had loved her from afar. And tomorrow, Marcus would have to find a way to tell her all of that without losing her in the process. A storm was coming, and all he could do was hold on and hope that love would be enough to weather it. Emma's soft breathing filled the small apartment as Marcus finally made it home, and he stood in her doorway watching her sleep, knowing that these might be the last few hours of the simple life they'd built together. Tomorrow, Victoria Morrison would become part of their story, and Marcus had no idea how it would end. The morning sun filtered through the thin curtains of Marcus's apartment, casting long shadows across the hardwood floor that had seen better days. Emma's school backpack sat by the door, stuffed with homework folders and the remnants of yesterday's lunch, waiting for another ordinary day that would be anything but ordinary. Marcus had been awake since 5, sitting at his small kitchen table with a cup of coffee that had gone cold hours ago. The manila envelope Victoria had shown him lay open beside his laptop, its contents spread across the surface like pieces of a puzzle he wasn't sure he wanted to solve. Birth certificates, legal documents, photographs, and bank statements painted a picture of a family history that Emma knew nothing about. The sound of small feet padding across the floor made him look up. Emma appeared in the doorway, her dark hair sticking up in every direction, wearing the pajamas with cartoon unicorns that she'd insisted were the most important pajamas in the world. She rubbed her eyes sleepily, then noticed the papers scattered across the table. "Daddy, why are you doing homework?" she asked, climbing onto the chair beside him. Marcus quickly gathered the documents, his heart racing. "Just some grown-up stuff, sweetheart. Nothing important." Emma tilted her head, a gesture that reminded him painfully of Victoria. "It looks important. There's lots of papers. Are you hungry? I can make pancakes." Marcus stood up, desperate to change the subject. He wasn't ready for this conversation, not yet. "With chocolate chips, with whatever you want." As Emma bounced excitedly toward the kitchen, Marcus's phone buzzed with a text message. Victoria Morrison's name appeared on the screen, and his stomach tightened as he read her words. "I couldn't sleep. I keep thinking about Emma. Is there a time today when we could talk more? I know this is overwhelming, but I need to understand what happens next." Marcus stared at the message, his thumb hovering over the keyboard. What did happen next? How do you introduce a 6-year-old to an aunt she's never met? How do you explain that the woman who raised her had kept secrets that changed everything? Another message appeared. "I've been thinking about what you said last night. About Emma asking about family. I have photo albums, home videos, things from when Violet and I were babies. I thought maybe she'd like to see them." Marcus felt his chest tighten. Photo albums, home videos, evidence of a family history that Emma had been denied. He thought about the sparse photo collection he had of Emma's early years, mostly pictures Sarah had taken, and realized how little he actually knew about Emma's biological family. "Daddy, you're staring at your phone like it's going to bite you," Emma said from the kitchen, standing on her tiptoes to reach the pancake mix. "Sorry, baby girl, just work stuff." Marcus put his phone away and joined her, grateful for the distraction of their morning routine. As they cooked breakfast together, Emma chattered about her upcoming science project on butterflies, how her friend Madison had lost another tooth, and whether Mrs. Patterson would remember to bring the class guinea pig back from its weekend adventure. Normal 6-year-old concerns that made Marcus's heart ache with their simplicity. "Daddy, do you think I'll ever have a baby sister?" Emma asked suddenly, flipping a pancake with serious concentration. Marcus nearly dropped his spatula. "Why do you ask that?" "Madison's mom is having a baby, and she gets to help pick out names and everything. I think I'd be a good big sister." "You would be an amazing big sister," Marcus said carefully. "But you know it's just us, right? We're a perfect team." Emma nodded, but he could see something thoughtful in her expression. "I know, but sometimes I wonder what it would be like to have more family. Like grandparents who could come to my school plays and stuff." Marcus felt the weight of Victoria's revelations pressing down on him. Emma did have family. She had an aunt who was successful and wealthy and desperate to know her. She had a grandmother who had loved her from afar until the day she died. She had an uncle in San Francisco who didn't even know she existed. "Emma, what if I told you that you might have more family than you thought?" She looked up at him with wide eyes. "Really?" Marcus chose his words carefully. "I mean hypothetically. How would you feel about that?" Emma considered this with the seriousness she brought to all important questions. "Would they love me?" "Yes, sweetheart. They would love you very much." "Would they want to meet me?" "I think they would want that more than anything." Emma smiled, and Marcus felt his heart break a little. That would be cool. But you'd still be my daddy, right? Forever and always, Bug. Nothing could ever change that. After breakfast, Marcus walked Emma to school, holding her hand as they navigated the familiar streets of their neighborhood. She skipped beside him, backpack bouncing, completely unaware that her world was about to shift in ways Marcus couldn't predict or control. "Have a good day, baby girl," he said, kissing her forehead before she ran toward the school entrance. "Love you, Daddy." Marcus watched her disappear into the building, then pulled out his phone and typed a response to Victoria. "Can you meet me at Pike Place Market at 10 a.m.? We need to talk about how to handle this." Her response came immediately. "I'll be there." Pike Place Market was crowded with tourists and locals, the air filled with the scent of fresh flowers and roasted coffee. Marcus found Victoria sitting at a small table in the back corner of a cafe, wearing jeans and a simple sweater that made her look younger and more approachable than she had in her business attire. She had a leather portfolio open in front of her, filled with photographs and documents that she was studying with intense concentration. When she looked up and saw Marcus approaching, her expression was a mixture of hope and anxiety. "Thank you for coming," she said, standing to shake his hand. "I brought some things I thought you might want to see." Marcus sat down across from her, accepting the coffee she'd ordered for him. "Victoria, before we go any further, I need to understand what you want from this situation." She looked surprised by the directness of his question. "I want to know my niece. I want to be part of her life in whatever way you think is appropriate." "And what does that look like to you? Weekend visits? Holidays? Or are you thinking something bigger?" Victoria was quiet for a long moment, her fingers tracing the edge of a photograph. "I don't know. I've never been around children much. I work 16-hour days, I travel constantly, and I live in a world that's not exactly kid-friendly. But she's family. She's the only family I have left, and I missed 6 years of her life already. I can't get that time back, but I don't want to lose any more." Marcus studied her face, seeing the vulnerability beneath the composed exterior. "What about your work, your company?" "I've been CEO for 8 years. I've built Morrison Holdings into something my mother would be proud of. But last night, sitting in that diner, I realized I've been so focused on building a legacy that I forgot to build a life." Victoria opened her portfolio and pulled out a photograph. It showed 2 little girls, maybe 4 years old, sitting in a sandbox together. They were identical except for their clothes, one in a pink dress, one in overalls. "That's me and Violet at the park near the house where I grew up. My adoptive parents took this picture a few weeks before they told me Violet was moving away. I didn't understand then that she was my sister. I thought she was just a friend who looked like me." Marcus took the photograph, studying the faces of the 2 children. "You remember her?" "Bits and pieces. Playing together, sharing toys, having tea parties. I used to have dreams about a girl who looked like me, but I always thought they were just dreams." Victoria's voice was thick with emotion. "I spent 32 years thinking I was an only child, and it turns out I had a twin sister who lived 20 minutes away from me until we were 4 years old." "Why did your parents separate you?" Victoria pulled out another document, this one bearing the letterhead of a law firm. "According to this, my parents only wanted one child. They thought twins would be too much work, too expensive. They chose me because I was healthier. I hadn't been born with a heart murmur like Violet had." Marcus felt a surge of anger. "They chose one child over another based on medical conditions? The lawyer's notes say that my parents were concerned about the cost of Violet's medical care. They wanted a perfect child." Victoria's voice was bitter. "So they took me and let another family adopt Violet. They never told me I had a sister." "And Violet never knew about you?" "Not until she hired that private investigator. She was trying to find our birth parents, but she discovered me instead. She died before she could make contact." Marcus looked at the photograph again, seeing Emma's features in both girls' faces. Did she know about Emma's connection to you? Victoria shook her head. I don't think so. The investigator's report says she was focused on finding our original family. She didn't know that Emma and I were connected through my mother. Your mother knew about Emma all along? She knew that Violet had gotten married and had a daughter. She tried to be part of Emma's life, but Sarah wouldn't allow it. My mother used to cry about it, talk about her granddaughter who she'd never get to hold. Marcus felt the familiar anger at Sarah's deception, but he pushed it down. Sarah was gone, and her reasons for keeping Emma away from her biological family had died with her. What about Emma's inheritance, the trust fund? Victoria pulled out a bank statement that made Marcus's eyes widen. My mother left everything to Emma. The house, the investments, the art collection. It's worth about $12 million. $12 million? Marcus's voice came out as a whisper. She'll get access to part of it when she turns 18, and the rest when she's 25. But there's also a provision for educational expenses, medical care, anything she needs before then. Marcus stared at the numbers on the page, trying to process what this meant for Emma's future. College tuition wouldn't be a concern. Neither would medical bills, or books, or any of the 100 small expenses that kept him awake at night. Marcus, I need you to understand something. This money comes with no strings attached. It's Emma's regardless of whether she wants a relationship with me or not. My mother made sure of that. Why? Because she loved Emma. She loved her from the moment she was born, and she wanted to make sure she was taken care of even if they never got to meet. Victoria reached into her portfolio again and pulled out a small wooden box. This was in my mother's bedroom. She asked me to give it to Emma when I found her. Marcus opened the box carefully. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a small butterfly charm, and beneath it, a letter written in shaking handwriting. To my darling Emma, Marcus read aloud. I know we never got to meet, but I have loved you every day since you were born. I hope this bracelet will remind you that you are cherished, and that somewhere in the world, you have a grandmother who thinks about you every morning and every night. Love always, Grandma Rose. Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. She signed it Grandma Rose. That's what she wanted Emma to call her. She used to practice introducing herself that way, in case she ever got the chance to meet her. They sat in silence for a while, both lost in their own thoughts. Marcus imagined Emma wearing the bracelet, finally having a tangible connection to the family she'd never known. Victoria stared at the photograph of her and Violet, probably wondering what their lives would have been like if they'd grown up. Together. There's something else, Victoria said quietly. The investigator found our brother, Michael. He's 28, lives in San Francisco, and he's a teacher. Have you contacted him? I called him this morning. Marcus looked up sharply. What did you say? I told him the truth. That he has 2 sisters he's never met, and that one of them died 7 years ago. He's driving up here tomorrow. Tomorrow, Victoria? This is moving really fast. I know. But I can't sit on this information. Michael has a right to know about his family, just like Emma does. And I think we need to be a family. All of us. Marcus felt overwhelmed by the speed at which everything was changing. Yesterday, he and Emma had been a family of 2. Now there were aunts and uncles and inheritances and relatives driving up from San Francisco. I need to tell Emma about you today, he said. I can't keep this from her any longer. Victoria's face lit up with hope and terror in equal measure. How will you explain it? I don't know. 6-year-olds aren't exactly equipped to understand complex family dynamics and decades-old secrets. Can I help? I mean, would it be easier if I was there when you told her? Marcus considered this. It might be. But I need to prepare her first. Maybe you could come to dinner tomorrow night? After I've had a chance to explain who you are, I'd like that. But Marcus, I need you to know that I'm not trying to replace Sarah. I'm not trying to be Emma's mother. I just want to be her aunt. What does that mean to you? Victoria thought about it. It means being someone she can count on. Someone who shows up to school plays and birthday parties and science fairs. Someone who teaches her about her mother's family and makes sure she knows she's loved. Marcus nodded slowly. And what about the money? The inheritance? It's hers. My mother wanted her to have opportunities, to go to good schools, to travel, to pursue whatever dreams she has. But the money doesn't change the fact that you're her father. You're the one who's raised her, who knows her favorite foods and her biggest fears. Money can't buy that. But it can buy a lot of other things. Private schools, tutors, experiences I could never afford. Victoria reached across the table and took his hand. Marcus, you've given Emma something more valuable than money. You've given her stability and love and a sense of security. That's not something you can put a price on. But what if she wants the other life? What if she wants to live with you, go to fancy schools, have all the advantages that money can provide? Then we'll figure it out together. But right now, she's 6 years old and she loves her daddy. She's not going to want to leave you. Marcus hoped Victoria was right, but he couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change in ways he couldn't control. They spent the next hour looking through Victoria's photo albums, and Marcus felt like he was getting a glimpse into a parallel universe. There were pictures of Violet as a baby, as a toddler, as a young woman. She looked so much like Emma that it was almost eerie. She was beautiful, Marcus said. Looking at a picture of Violet on her wedding day, she was. And she was brave. The investigator's report says she was working 2 jobs to support Emma after David died. She was a waitress at night and a daycare worker during the day. That sounds like Sarah. She was always working, always trying to provide for Emma. Victoria showed him more pictures, including some of Emma as a baby that Marcus had never seen before. Violet sent these to my mother. She wanted her to know her granddaughter, even if they couldn't meet. Marcus studied the photos, seeing Emma's personality even in her infant face. She was such a serious baby, always watching everything, trying to figure out how the world worked. She still does that. Last night, when I was upset, she kept studying my face like she was trying to solve a puzzle. That's Emma. She notices everything. Victoria closed the photo album and looked at Marcus with determination. I want to be part of her life, Marcus. I want to take her to museums and teach her about art and make sure she knows she has a family that loves her. But I also want to support you. I want to help you give her the best possible life. What are you saying? I'm saying that maybe we don't have to figure this out alone. Maybe we can do this together. You know Emma better than anyone, and I have resources that could help her future. We could be a team. Marcus felt something shift in his chest. For 2 years, he'd been raising Emma alone, making every decision by himself, worrying about money and schools and whether he was doing enough. The idea of having a partner in Emma's upbringing was both terrifying and appealing. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. Neither do I, but I think we both love Emma enough to figure it out. They agreed to meet again the next day after Marcus had told Emma about Victoria. As they prepared to leave the cafe, Victoria handed him a business card. That's my personal number. If you need anything, if Emma has questions, if you just want to talk, call me, day or night. Marcus took the card, noting the elegant script and expensive paper. Victoria, can I ask you something? Of course. Why does this matter so much to you? You have a successful career, you're wealthy, you could have any life you want. Why complicate it with a 6-year-old you've never met? Victoria was quiet for a long moment. Because I spent 32 years thinking I was alone in the world. I built a company, made millions of dollars, achieved everything I thought I wanted, but I was lonely. I was so lonely that I was crying in my car at 3 in the morning because I realized I had no one to share my grief with. She paused, looking out the window at the bustling market. When I found out about Violet, about Emma, I realized I wasn't alone. I have family. I have people who share my DNA, my history, my mother's love. Emma is my connection to all of that. And Michael? Michael is my brother. He's part of this family too. And if we're going to do this, we need to do it right. Emma deserves to know all of her family, not just pieces of it. Marcus nodded, understanding the weight of what Victoria was saying. This wasn't just about Emma anymore. It was about building a family from the scattered pieces of one that had been torn apart before any of them were old enough to understand what they were losing. As they parted ways, Marcus felt the enormity of what lay ahead. Tonight he would sit Emma down and tell her about Victoria. Tomorrow he would introduce her to the aunt she'd never known she had. And soon, there would be an uncle from San Francisco, and bank accounts with more money than Marcus had ever imagined, and a future that looked nothing like the one he'd planned. But as he walked home through the familiar streets of Seattle, Marcus realized that maybe that wasn't such a bad thing. Maybe Emma deserved more than just the small, safe life he'd been able to provide. Maybe she deserved the chance to know her family, to understand her history, to have opportunities he'd never dreamed of. The question was whether he was brave enough to let her have them. That afternoon, Marcus picked Emma up from school and took her to their favorite ice cream shop. She chattered about her day, about the frog they'd found in the playground, and how her teacher had read them a story about a girl who discovered she was a princess. "Daddy, do you think people can be princesses without knowing it?" Emma asked, swinging her legs from the booth. Marcus nearly choked on his ice cream. "What do you mean?" "Like in the story. The girl thought she was just normal, but then she found out she was special. Do you think that happens in real life?" "I think," Marcus said carefully, "that everyone is special in their own way. Some people just don't know it yet." Emma nodded sagely. "I think I might be special. I can wiggle my ears, and I know all the words to the butterfly song. You are definitely special, Bug. More special than you know." They walked home slowly, Emma skipping ahead and then circling back to take Marcus's hand. She was full of 6-year-old energy and curiosity, completely unaware that her life was about to change in ways that would affect her forever. That evening, after dinner and homework and the usual bedtime routine, Marcus sat on Emma's bed with the wooden box Victoria had given him. "Emma, I have something important to tell you." She looked up from her coloring book, sensing the seriousness in his voice. "Am I in trouble?" "No, sweetheart. You're not in trouble, but I need to talk to you about your family." Emma set down her crayons and gave him her full attention. "What about my family? You know how I've always told you that it was just you and me, that we were a team?" "Yeah. Well, I found out something today. You have more family than we thought. You have an aunt who's been looking for you." Emma's eyes widened. "A real aunt?" "A real aunt. Her name is Victoria, and she's your mommy Sarah's sister." "But I thought Sarah didn't have any family." Marcus chose his words carefully. "Sarah thought she didn't have any family. But it turns out she had a twin sister who was looking for her, your Aunt Victoria." Emma processed this information with the seriousness she brought to all important revelations. "Where has she been?" "She's been living here in Seattle, but she didn't know about you until yesterday. She's been looking for her sister, your mommy Sarah, for a long time." "Does she want to meet me?" "She wants to meet you very much. She's been waiting her whole life to have a family." Emma was quiet for a moment, then asked, "Will she like me?" Marcus felt his heart break at the uncertainty in her voice. "Emma, she's going to love you. She already loves you just from hearing about you. What's she like?" "She's very smart and very successful. She runs a big company. But mostly, she's someone who's been lonely for a long time, just like we were. Before we found each other." Emma nodded, understanding loneliness in a way that most 6-year-olds didn't. "When can I meet her?" "She's going to come to dinner tomorrow night. Is that okay with you? Can we make spaghetti?" "That's my favorite." We can make whatever you want." Emma seemed to consider this, then reached for Marcus's hand. "Daddy, if I have an aunt, does that mean I have other family too?" Marcus felt the weight of all the revelations still to come. "You might, sweetheart. We're still figuring that out. Will you still be my daddy? Forever and always, Bug. Having more family doesn't change that. It just means there are more people who love you." Emma smiled, and Marcus felt some of the tension in his chest ease. "I think I'd like to meet my aunt. I'm glad. She's very excited to meet you too." Marcus opened the wooden box and showed Emma the bracelet. "This is from your grandmother, Rose. She wanted me to give it to you." Emma's eyes went wide as she looked at the delicate silver chain and butterfly charm. "I have a grandmother?" "You had a grandmother. She died a few weeks ago, but she loved you very much. She wanted you to have this to remember her by." Emma took the bracelet carefully, turning it over in her small hands. "It's beautiful. Can I wear it?" "Of course you can." As Marcus helped Emma put on the bracelet, he thought about Rose Morrison, the woman who had loved Emma from afar and had never gotten the chance to meet her. He thought about Violet, who had died not knowing she had a sister. He thought about Victoria, who had spent 32 years thinking she was alone in the world. And he thought about Emma, who was about to discover that she was part of a family larger and more complex than either of them had ever imagined. "Daddy," Emma said, admiring her new bracelet, "I think tomorrow is going to be a really important day." Marcus kissed her forehead and tucked her into bed. "I think you're right, Bug. I think it's going to be the start of something really special." As he turned off the lights and closed Emma's door, Marcus felt the weight of the day settling over him. Tomorrow Victoria would come to dinner. Soon, Michael would arrive from San Francisco. Emma would learn about her inheritance, her history, her place in a family that had been scattered before she was born. But tonight, she was still just Emma, his Emma, the little girl who had saved him from grief and given him a reason to build a life worth living. Whatever tomorrow brought, Marcus knew that would never change. Emma would always be his daughter, and he would always be her father. The rest they would figure out together. Outside, Seattle settled into evening, and Marcus Chun prepared for a future that looked nothing like the one he'd planned but might be more beautiful than anything he'd ever imagined. The apartment had never felt smaller than it did on Tuesday evening as Marcus rushed around, straightening cushions that didn't need straightening and checking the spaghetti sauce for the 10th time in 5 minutes. Emma sat at the kitchen table, carefully drawing a picture with her new crayons, the butterfly bracelet catching the light every time she moved her wrist. "Daddy, you're being weird," she observed without looking up from her artwork. "I'm not being weird. I'm just making sure everything is perfect for when your aunt arrives." Emma glanced at him with the kind of knowing look that always reminded him she was far more perceptive than her age suggested. "Are you nervous?" Marcus paused in his frantic cleaning. "A little bit. Are you?" "Nope." Emma held up her drawing, which showed 3 stick figures standing under a rainbow. "I made this for Aunt Victoria. Do you think she'd like it?" Marcus looked at the drawing, seeing himself and Emma clearly represented, and a third figure with yellow hair and a big smile. "I think she'd love it, Bug." The doorbell rang at exactly 6 o'clock, and Marcus felt his heart jump into his throat. He opened the door to find Victoria standing in the hallway, holding a small gift bag and looking almost as nervous as he felt. She had traded her usual business attire for dark jeans and a soft blue sweater, and her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail that made her look younger and more approachable. "Hi," she said softly, her voice carrying a slight tremor. "Hi. Come in." Marcus stepped aside, and Victoria entered the small apartment, her eyes taking in the modest furnishings and the child-friendly chaos that came with having a 6-year-old. Emma appeared from the kitchen, and Marcus watched as Victoria's breath caught in her throat. The resemblance between Emma and the photographs of Violet was striking, But seeing Emma in person seemed to affect Victoria in a way that pictures couldn't prepare her for. "You must be Emma," Victoria said, her voice thick with emotion. Emma nodded, suddenly shy in a way that was unusual for her. "Are you my Aunt Victoria?" "I am." Victoria knelt down to Emma's level, and Marcus could see tears forming in her eyes. "I've been wanting to meet you for so long. Daddy says you're my mommy Sarah's sister." "That's right. We were twins, which means we looked exactly alike when we were little, just like you and I look alike now." Emma studied Victoria's face with intense concentration. "You do look like me. But you're taller." Victoria laughed, a sound that was part joy and part relief. "I had a lot more time to grow. Maybe someday you'll be as tall as me." "I made you a picture," Emma said, suddenly remembering her artwork. She ran to the kitchen and returned with the drawing, holding it out to Victoria. With pride, Victoria took the picture with trembling hands, studying it as if it were a priceless work of art. "This is beautiful, Emma. Is this your daddy and you and me?" "Yep, and that's a rainbow because rainbows mean good things are coming." Victoria looked up at Marcus, and he could see the emotion threatening to overwhelm her. "It's perfect. Thank you." Dinner was a revelation in ways Marcus hadn't expected. Victoria, who commanded boardrooms and made million-dollar decisions without breaking a sweat, was completely charmed by Emma's 6-year-old logic and endless questions. Emma, who could be shy with strangers, seemed to sense that Victoria was family and opened up in ways that surprised Marcus. "Do you live in a castle?" Emma asked, twirling spaghetti around her fork with varying degrees of success. "No, I live in a regular house. Well, maybe a little bigger than regular, but definitely not a castle. Daddy says you run a big company. Do you have a crown?" Victoria laughed, and Marcus noticed how different she looked when she was genuinely happy. "I don't have a crown, but I do have a lot of meetings where people sit around a big table and talk about important things." "That sounds boring." "It is boring. Much more boring than drawing pictures and eating spaghetti." Emma nodded sagely. "Adults do lots of boring things. Daddy has to do taxes, and that makes him grumpy." "Taxes make everyone grumpy," Victoria agreed solemnly. After dinner, Victoria presented Emma with the gift bag she'd brought. Inside was a children's book about butterflies, beautifully illustrated with photographs and simple explanations of metamorphosis. "Daddy, look, it's about butterflies like my bracelet." Emma clutched the book to her chest. "Will you read it?" "To me?" "Of course, but maybe Aunt Victoria would like to read it with us." Victoria looked surprised and pleased. "I'd love to, if that's okay." They settled on the couch, Emma in the middle with the book open on her lap, Marcus and Victoria on either side. As Victoria read about caterpillars transforming into butterflies, Marcus found himself watching Emma's face, seeing the wonder and curiosity that made her so special. "Daddy, do you think people can transform like butterflies?" Emma asked when Victoria finished reading. "What do you mean, sweetheart? Like, can they change into something better? Something more beautiful?" Marcus felt his throat tighten. "I think people can grow and change and become the best versions of themselves. Like how I used to be scared of the dark, but now I'm not. Exactly like that." Emma turned to Victoria. "Were you ever scared of anything?" Victoria was quiet for a moment, considering her answer. "I was scared of being alone. I was scared that I'd never have a family." "But you have a family now," Emma said matter-of-factly. "You have me and Daddy." Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "Yes, I do, and I'm not scared anymore." Later, after Emma had been tucked into bed with promises that Victoria would come visit again soon, Marcus and Victoria sat at the kitchen table with cups of coffee neither of them was drinking. "She's incredible," Victoria said softly. "Smart and funny and so full of life. Sarah did an amazing job raising her." "She did, and you were wonderful with her tonight." Victoria shook her head. "I was terrified." I've never been around children. Before, I didn't know what to say, how to act. You were perfect. You were yourself, and that's what she needed. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, both processing the significance of the evening. Finally, Victoria spoke again. "Marcus, I need to tell you something. Michael is arriving tomorrow morning. He's driving through the night to get here." Marcus felt his stomach tighten. How much does he know? Everything. I told him about Violet, about Emma, about the inheritance. He's as shocked as we are, but he wants to meet his niece. What's he like? Victoria pulled out her phone and showed Marcus a photo from Michael's social media. A young man with dark hair and kind eyes, standing in front of a classroom full of children. He teaches 3rd grade in San Francisco. He's 28, single, and from what I can tell from our phone conversations, he's got a good heart. Is he prepared for this? For Emma? I think so. He said he's always wanted to be an uncle, and now he has a chance to be one. Marcus studied the photo, trying to imagine this stranger as part of Emma's life. "Victoria, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." "Of course. Are you planning to seek custody of Emma?" Victoria's face went pale. "What? No. Marcus, why would you think that?" "Because you're her biological family. Because you have money and resources and can provide things for her that I can't. Because legally, you might have more right to her than I do." Victoria reached across the table and took his hand. "Marcus, listen to me. You are Emma's father. You're the one who's raised her, who knows her favorite foods and her bedtime stories, and how to comfort her when she's scared. I'm not trying to take her away from you. I'm trying to be part of the family you've already built. But what if the court sees it differently? What if they think she'd be better off with you? Then we'll make sure that doesn't happen. Marcus, I'll sign any legal document you want. I'll make it clear that I'm not seeking custody, that I support your parental rights completely." Marcus felt some of the tension leave his shoulders. "I'm sorry, I'm just scared. She's everything to me. I know. And that's exactly why you're the right person to be her father." The next morning, Marcus was making pancakes when the doorbell rang. Emma was still in her pajamas, her hair sticking up in every direction, when she opened the door to find a tall man with dark hair and a nervous smile. "Are you my Uncle Michael?" she asked with typical 6-year-old directness. "I am. And you?" "Must be Emma. I've heard so much about you." Emma studied him with the same intense concentration she'd given Victoria. "You look like my daddy." Michael glanced at Marcus, who was approaching with a spatula still in his hand. "I think I look more like you, actually. We have the same eyes." "Really?" Emma ran to the hallway mirror and studied her reflection, then came back to compare her face to Michael's. "You're right. We do have the same eyes." Michael looked at Marcus over Emma's head. "You must be Marcus. I'm Michael Torres. Come in. We're just making breakfast." The morning passed in a blur of introductions and explanations. Michael was everything Victoria had described: kind, patient, and genuinely excited to meet Emma. He brought her a small stuffed elephant from San Francisco and listened with rapt attention as she told him about her school and her friends and her butterfly project. "I teach kids who are a little older than you," Michael said as they sat around the kitchen table eating pancakes. "3rd graders. They're 8 and 9 years old. Are they nice?" "Most of them are. There's one boy named Carlos who reminds me of you. He asks a million questions and isn't afraid of anything." Emma giggled. "I ask a million questions too. Daddy says I'm curious. Curious is good. It means you want to learn about the world." Victoria arrived around noon, and Marcus watched as the 3 members of Emma's newfound family sat together in his living room. Emma had positioned herself in the middle, as if she were the center of gravity holding them all together. "So, we're all family now?" Emma asked, looking from Victoria to Michael to Marcus. "We're all family," Victoria confirmed. You have an aunt and an uncle who love you very much. And I still have my daddy. You'll always have your daddy, Michael sighed. Nothing changes that. Emma seemed satisfied with this arrangement. Good. I like having a big family. That afternoon, Victoria and Michael took Emma to the park while Marcus stayed home to clean up and process everything that was happening. When they returned, Emma was full of stories about the ducks they'd fed and the playground equipment. Michael had helped her navigate. Uncle Michael can push me really high on the swings, she announced. And Aunt Victoria knows a lot about flowers. We had a good time, Victoria said, and Marcus could see something relaxed and happy in her expression that he hadn't seen before. She's amazing, Michael added. Smart and funny and so full of energy. I can see why you're so proud of her. That evening, after Emma had gone to bed, the three adults sat around the kitchen table discussing the future. Marcus had prepared himself for this conversation, but he still felt overwhelmed by the complexity of the situation. I think we need to establish some ground rules, Marcus said. About visits, about decisions, about how we handle this going forward. Victoria nodded. I agree. Emma needs stability and consistency. She needs to know what to expect. What did you have in mind? Michael asked. Marcus had been thinking about this all day. I think we should start slowly. Maybe Victoria could come to dinner once a week, and Michael could visit when he's in town. We need to let Emma get used to having extended family without overwhelming her. That sounds reasonable, Victoria said. And what about bigger decisions? School, medical care, things like that. Those stay with me. I'm her legal guardian. And I know her best. But I'm open to input, especially about her education and future opportunities. Michael leaned forward. What about the inheritance? How do we handle that? Marcus had been dreading this question. I think we need to be careful about that. Emma's 6 years old. She doesn't need to know about the money yet. And when she does learn about it, we need to make sure she understands that it doesn't change anything about her relationship with any of us. Agreed, Victoria said. The money is for her future, not for changing her present. What about her grandmother's house? Michael asked. The one Emma inherited? Victoria pulled out a folder of documents. It's a beautiful house in Queen Anne. My mother had it set up as a trust, so Emma will own it when she turns 25. But in the meantime, we could use it for family gatherings, holidays, things like that. Marcus felt a familiar surge of inadequacy. I can't afford to maintain a house like that. You don't have to, Victoria said quickly. The trust covers all the expenses, taxes, utilities, maintenance, everything. It's already taken care of. But I don't want Emma to feel like she has to choose between her old life and her new one. Michael nodded. So we make sure she doesn't have to choose. We make sure she knows that having more family doesn't mean losing what she already has. They talked for hours, working through the logistics of blending their lives together. Victoria would maintain her apartment, but spend more time in Seattle. Michael would visit monthly and during school breaks. Emma would continue living with Marcus, going to her same school, maintaining her routine. What about holidays? Victoria asked. Christmas, Thanksgiving, birthdays? We'll figure it out as we go, Marcus said. Emma's never had a big family. Christmas, it might be fun for her to experience that. My mother used to go all out for Christmas, Victoria said softly. The house would be decorated from top to bottom. Maybe we could do something like that this year. Emma would love that, Marcus said, imagining his daughter's face lighting up at the sight of a house transformed for the holidays. As the evening wound down, Marcus found himself feeling cautiously optimistic about the future. Victoria and Michael seemed genuine in their desire to be part of Emma's life without disrupting it. They understood that Marcus was her father and that his relationship with Emma came first. There's one more thing, Victoria said as they prepared to leave. I'd like to set up a college fund for Emma, something separate from the inheritance. just to make sure her education is covered no matter what. Victoria, that's incredibly generous, but it's not generous. It's what family does. My mother would have wanted Emma to have every opportunity possible. Marcus felt overwhelmed by Victoria's kindness, but also by the magnitude of what Emma's life was becoming. I just want to make sure she stays grounded. I want her to understand the value of work and responsibility. She will, Michael said. She has you as her father. She learned those values from you. After Victoria and Michael left, Marcus sat alone in his quiet apartment, thinking about how much had changed in just a few days. Emma had gone from being a little girl with no extended family to having an aunt and uncle who adored her. She had inherited a fortune and a house and opportunities that Marcus could never have provided. But more than that, she had something she'd never had before, a sense of belonging to something larger than just the small family she and Marcus had built together. She had a history, a legacy, a connection to people who shared her blood, and her story. The next morning, Emma woke up chattering about her new family members. She wanted to call Victoria to tell her about a dream she'd had, and she asked when Uncle Michael would come back to visit. "Can we go see Grandma Rose's house?" she asked over breakfast. Marcus nearly choked on his coffee. "How do you know about Grandma Rose's house?" "Aunt Victoria told me yesterday. She said it's big and has a garden and that maybe we could have a tea party there sometime." Marcus made a mental note to talk to Victoria about what information was appropriate to share with Emma. "Would you like to see it?" "Yes. And can we bring Uncle Michael next time he comes?" "I think that could be arranged." Later that day, Victoria picked them up and drove them to Queen Anne. The house was everything Marcus had imagined and more, a beautiful Victorian home with a wraparound porch, bay windows, and a garden that looked like something out of a magazine. Emma's eyes went wide as they walked up the front steps. "This is really mine?" "It will be when you're older," Victoria said. "But for now, it's a place where our family can come together." Inside, the house was elegantly furnished with antiques and artwork that spoke of generations of careful curation. Emma ran from room to room, exploring every corner with the enthusiasm of a child discovering a treasure. "Look, Daddy. There's a library with books that go all the way to the ceiling." Marcus followed her into the library, feeling overwhelmed by the grandeur of it all. This was Emma's inheritance, her birthright, and he was just the working class man who had happened to love her enough to raise her. "The books are mostly classics," Victoria said, joining them. "My mother was a literature professor before she married my father. She loved to read." "Emma loves books too," Marcus said, watching his daughter pull a volume from the shelf and examine it with reverence. "Can I read all of these?" Emma asked. "Someday, when you're older," Victoria said. "But for now, maybe we can pick out a few that are right for your age." They spent the afternoon exploring the house, and Marcus found himself imagining Emma growing up with access to all of this. The grand piano in the music room, the art studio on the third floor, the garden where she could play and learn about plants and flowers. "It's a lot to take in," Victoria said quietly as they watched Emma chase butterflies in the garden. "It's overwhelming," Marcus admitted. "I keep thinking about how different her life is going to be. Different doesn't have to mean bad. She still be the same Emma, just with more opportunities. But what if she outgrows me? What if she decides she wants to live in this world instead of mine?" Victoria touched his arm gently. "Marcus, look at her. She's not looking at the house or the garden or any of the expensive things. She's looking at you to make sure you're still there. She's checking to see if you're enjoying this too. You're her anchor, her constant. That's not going to change." Marcus watched Emma run toward him with a flower in her hand, her face bright with joy. "Daddy, look what I found. It's the same color as my bracelet." "It's beautiful, Bug. Can we plant some of these at home? In our window box?" Marcus smiled, feeling some of his anxiety ease. Emma wasn't being seduced by wealth or luxury. She was still his practical, grounded little girl who wanted to take a piece of this beauty home to their small apartment. I think that's a wonderful idea. That evening, as they drove back to their apartment, Emma fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted from the day's adventures. Victoria and Marcus talked quietly in the front seat, planning future visits and discussing Emma's adjustment to her new circumstances. "She's handling all of this better than I expected," Marcus said. "She's resilient, and she feels secure in your love. That makes all the difference. Victoria, I need to ask you something. Are you happy? I mean, is this what you wanted when you found out about Emma?" Victoria was quiet for a moment. "I didn't know what I wanted. I just knew I couldn't live with the regret of not trying. But seeing her today, watching her explore that house, seeing how much she loves you and trusts you, yes, I'm happy. I'm happier than I've been in years. And Michael? He's already making plans to come back next month. He wants to take Emma to the Children's Museum and the zoo. He's smitten with her." Marcus felt a warmth spreading through his chest. "She's pretty easy to fall in love with. She is. And so are you, Marcus. You're an amazing father. Emma is lucky to have you." As they pulled into his apartment complex, Marcus felt a sense of peace he hadn't experienced in days. The future was still uncertain, and there would be challenges ahead as they figured out how to blend their lives together. But for the first time since Victoria had cried in her car that rainy night, Marcus felt confident that they could make this work. Emma stirred as he carried her upstairs, wrapping her arms around his neck in the unconscious way children do when they feel safe and loved. "Daddy?" she mumbled sleepily. "Yeah, Bug. I like having a big family. I like it too, sweetheart. But you're still my favorite," Marcus smiled, kissing the top of her head. "You're my favorite too, Emma, always." As he tucked her into bed, Emma looked up at him with drowsy eyes. "Daddy, do you think Mommy Sarah would be happy that I found her sister?" Marcus felt his throat tighten. "I think she would be very happy. I think she would want you to have all the family you can get." "Good," Emma said, closing her eyes. "Because I want to keep everyone." Marcus turned off the lights and stood in the doorway, watching his daughter sleep. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new adjustments. Victoria would continue integrating into their lives. Michael would become a regular presence, and Emma would continue growing up in a world that was far more complex and privileged than the one he had planned for her. But tonight, she was still his little girl, sleeping peacefully in her small bed, wearing the butterfly bracelet that connected her to a family she was only beginning to understand. And Marcus Chun, the delivery driver who had stopped to help a crying woman in a car, realized that sometimes the most important deliveries are the ones that deliver people to each other. In the quiet of his apartment, with Emma safe in her bed and a future full of possibilities stretching out before them, Marcus felt grateful for the rainy night that had changed everything. He had thought he was rescuing Victoria, but in the end, they had all rescued each other. The story was far from over, but for the first time in years, Marcus wasn't afraid of what came next. With Emma's new family standing beside them, he felt ready to face whatever challenges and joys the future might bring. After all, they weren't just a family of two anymore. They were part of something bigger, something that had been broken and was now being carefully, lovingly put back together. And that, Marcus thought as he finally headed to bed, was worth every moment of uncertainty and fear they had endured to get here. 3 months had passed since that rainy night when Marcus first found Victoria crying in her car, and life had settled into a rhythm that surprised everyone with its natural flow. Emma had adapted to her expanded family with the resilience that children possess, treating weekly dinners with Aunt Victoria and monthly visits from Uncle Michael as if they had always been part of her world. Marcus was loading his delivery truck on a crisp October morning when his phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. "Emergency at the office. Can you pick up Emma from school today?" I was supposed to take her to the art museum. He quickly typed back, of course. Everything okay? Hostile takeover attempt. We'll explain later. Thank you. Marcus stared at his phone, feeling the familiar knot of anxiety in his stomach. Victoria's world of corporate battles and million-dollar decisions still felt foreign to him, but he was learning that it was a world that could intrude on their carefully constructed family life without warning. At 3:30, Marcus stood outside Emma's school, watching the stream of children emerge from the building. Emma spotted him immediately and ran over, her backpack bouncing against her shoulders. "Daddy, I thought Aunt Victoria was picking me up today. She had to work late, so I'm your ride instead. Are you disappointed?" Emma considered this with the serious expression she wore when making important decisions. "A little. But I like surprise daddy time too." They walked hand in hand toward his truck, and Marcus noticed Emma seemed quieter than usual. "How was school today, Bug?" "Okay, I guess." Emma climbed into the passenger seat and buckled her seatbelt with the practiced efficiency of someone who had been riding in delivery trucks for years. "Just okay? Did something happen?" Emma was quiet for a moment, then looked out the window. "Madison asked me why I have different last names from my aunt and uncle." Marcus felt his chest tighten. "What did you tell her?" "I told her it's complicated. But then she asked if you're my real dad or my fake dad." Marcus pulled over to the curb and turned to face Emma. "What do you think about that question?" Emma's eyes filled with tears. "I told her you're my real dad because you're the one who takes care of me and loves me and knows that I don't like crusts on my sandwiches. But she said that's not what real means." Marcus unbuckled his seatbelt and pulled Emma into a hug. "Emma, listen to me. There are different kinds of families. Some kids live with the people who gave birth to them, and some kids live with people who chose to love them. Both kinds are real families. But which kind am I? You're both kinds. You have biological family who share your DNA, like Aunt Victoria and Uncle Michael. And you have chosen family like me, who love you just as much as if you were born to us." Emma pulled back to look at him. "So I have two real families? You have one big, complicated, wonderful family that includes all of us. And I am your real dad in every way that matters." Emma wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "Madison doesn't understand because she only has one kind of family. That's right. Not everyone gets to have as much family as you do." They drove home in comfortable silence, Emma's questions apparently satisfied for now. But Marcus knew this wouldn't be the last time someone would question their family structure. As Emma got older, the questions would become more complex, more challenging. That evening, Victoria arrived at their apartment looking frazzled in a way Marcus had never seen before. Her usually perfect hair was disheveled, and there were dark circles under her eyes. "I'm sorry about today," she said, accepting the cup of tea Marcus offered her. The board meeting ran until 8 o'clock. "Is everything okay with the company?" Victoria sank into the couch with a sigh. "A competitor's trying to buy us out. They're offering shareholders a premium for their stock, and some of them are considering it." Emma looked up from her coloring book. "What does that mean?" "It means some people want to take over Aunt Victoria's company," Marcus explained. "Can they do that?" Victoria managed a tired smile. "They can try. But I've been building this company for 8 years, and I'm not going to let anyone take it without a fight." "Will you still be my aunt if they take your company?" Victoria's expression softened. "Oh, sweetheart. Of course I'll still be your aunt. My job doesn't change the fact that we're family." Emma nodded, satisfied with this answer, and returned to her coloring. But Marcus could see the strain in Victoria's face, the way her hands shook slightly as she lifted her teacup. "Victoria, is there anything I can do to help?" "Actually, yes. I might need to travel more over the next few weeks. Board meetings, investor presentations, things like that. Would it be possible for you to be more flexible with Emma's schedule?" "Of course." But what about your weekly dinners? Emma looks forward to those. Victoria looked at Emma, who was listening intently despite pretending to color. We'll figure it out. Maybe we can do video calls when I'm traveling. That's not the same as being here, Emma said without looking up. No, it's not. But sometimes grown-ups have to work extra hard to protect the things that are important to them. Emma set down her crayon and looked at Victoria with solemn eyes. Is your company more important than me? Victoria's face crumpled. No, Emma. Nothing is more important than you. But sometimes I have to work hard to make sure I can keep being part of your life. Why? Victoria looked at Marcus helplessly. How do you explain corporate politics and financial pressure to a 6-year-old? Sometimes, Marcus said carefully, adults have to fight to keep the things they love. Aunt Victoria is fighting to keep her company so she can keep being the person she is. Emma considered this. Like when I had to fight Tommy Peterson to keep him from taking my lunch money? Something like that, yes. Did you win? Victoria smiled for the first time that evening. I'm still fighting, but yes, I think I'm going to win. Over the next 2 weeks, Victoria's visits became sporadic. She would arrive late for dinner, take calls during Emma's bedtime stories, and sometimes cancel at the last minute due to emergency meetings. Marcus watched Emma's disappointment grow with each missed appointment, each distracted conversation. Is Aunt Victoria coming to my school play? Emma asked one Thursday evening as Marcus helped her practice her lines. I don't know, sweetheart. She's been very busy with work. She promised she would come. Marcus felt anger building in his chest. Victoria had promised, and Emma had been practicing extra hard because she knew her aunt would be watching. I'll call her and remind her. Don't make her come if she doesn't want to. Marcus knelt down beside Emma. She wants to come, Bug. She's just dealing with some difficult things right now. Maybe she doesn't want to be my aunt anymore. Marcus's heart broke at the uncertainty in Emma's voice. Emma, that's not true. Aunt Victoria loves you very much. She's just scared right now. Scared of what? Scared of losing something that's important to her. Emma was quiet for a moment. Like how I was scared you wouldn't love me anymore when I found out about my other family. Marcus was struck by his daughter's insight. Exactly like that. But you told me that love doesn't go away just because things change. That's right. So maybe I should tell Aunt Victoria the same thing. That night, after Emma was asleep, Marcus called Victoria. She answered on the first ring, her voice tight with stress. Marcus, I can't talk long. I have a conference. Call with Tokyo in 10 minutes. Victoria, Emma's school play is tomorrow at 2 o'clock. You promised you'd be there. There was a long pause. I know, I want to be there. But I have a meeting with the board at the same time. Reschedule it, I can't. This meeting could determine whether I keep control of the company. Marcus felt his anger boiling over. And Emma's play could determine whether you keep your relationship with your niece. That's not fair, Marcus. Neither is breaking promises to a 6-year-old who already has abandonment issues. Victoria was quiet for so long that Marcus thought she might have hung up. Finally she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know how to do this. Do what? Be a person who matters to someone. I've spent my whole adult life focused on work, on achievements, on things I could control. But Emma, I can't control how she feels about me. I can't guarantee that I won't let her down. Marcus felt his anger dissipate, replaced by understanding. Victoria, you're not going to be perfect. None of us are. But you have to show up. That's what family does. What if I lose the company? What if I lose everything I've worked for? Then you'll still have Emma. You'll still have us. And maybe that will be enough. Victoria was crying now. He could hear it in her voice. I'm so scared, Marcus. I'm scared of losing the company. But I'm more scared of losing Emma. And I don't know how to balance both. You don't have to balance them. You have to choose. And if you choose Emma, The rest will work itself out. The next day, Marcus sat in the elementary school auditorium, watching the second-grade class perform their play about woodland creatures. Emma, dressed as a butterfly, delivered her lines with confidence and joy. But Marcus could see her scanning the audience, looking for Victoria. Just as Emma began her final monologue about transformation and change, Victoria slipped into the auditorium. She was still wearing her business suit, her hair was windblown, and she looked like she had run all the way from her office. But she was there. Emma's face lit up when she spotted her aunt, and her performance became even more animated. After the play, she ran to Victoria and threw her arms around her waist. "You came. I knew you would come." Victoria hugged Emma tightly, tears streaming down her face. "I wouldn't miss it for anything in the world. Did you like my costume? Daddy helped me make the wings. You were the most beautiful butterfly I've ever seen." As they walked to the parking lot, Emma chattering excitedly about the play, Victoria fell into step beside Marcus. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" "For reminding me what really matters. I missed the board meeting." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "Victoria, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for you to. I'm not sorry. I told them that I had a family commitment that couldn't be rescheduled. And you know what? They rescheduled the meeting." "Really? Really?" "Turns out the world doesn't end when you put family first." That weekend, Victoria took Emma to the zoo while Marcus had a rare Saturday off. They returned home with stories of elephants and lions, and Emma was wearing a new t-shirt that read, "My aunt is cooler than your aunt." "We had the best time," Victoria said, settling onto the couch with Emma cuddled against her side. "Did you know that butterflies taste with their feet?" "I know everything about butterflies," Emma said proudly. "They're my favorite." "Mine too," Victoria said, kissing the top of Emma's head. Later, while Emma was taking a bath, Victoria and Marcus sat at the kitchen table, going through the paperwork for Emma's college fund. "The hostile takeover failed," Victoria said casually, as if she were discussing the weather. "What? When?" "Yesterday. The board voted unanimously to reject the offer. Apparently, my passionate speech about the importance of family values and work-life balance was quite persuasive." Marcus laughed. "You used Emma to save your company?" "I used the truth. I told them that a company is only as strong as the values it represents, and I wanted to represent the value of putting family first." "And they bought it?" Victoria grinned. "They bought it. We're implementing a new family-friendly policy company-wide. Flexible schedules, parental leave, child care support. Emma inspired a corporate revolution. She's good at that. She's good at a lot of things. Marcus, I want to ask you something." "Shoot." "I've been thinking about my living situation. I spend so much time here, and I have that big empty apartment across town. Would you consider letting me move closer? Maybe find a place in this neighborhood?" Marcus felt his protective instincts kick in. "Victoria, if you're thinking about getting a place so you can see Emma more often, I'm thinking about getting a place so I can be part of this family in a more meaningful way. I want to be the aunt who lives close enough to babysit when you have to work late. I want to be the person Emma can walk to when she needs help with homework, or wants to talk about boys, or just needs a different perspective." Marcus studied her face, seeing the sincerity there. "What about your penthouse, your carefully curated life?" "That wasn't a life. That was a museum. I want to live somewhere that feels like home." "And where feels like home?" Victoria looked around the small apartment with its mismatched furniture and children's artwork taped to the walls. "Here, near you and Emma, near the family I never knew I wanted." That night, as Marcus tucked Emma into bed, she was unusually thoughtful. "Daddy, do you think Aunt Victoria is happier now?" "What do you mean?" "Before, when she came to visit, she always seemed worried about something. But today at the zoo, she was just happy, like she wasn't thinking about anything else." Marcus marveled at his daughter's perceptiveness. I think she is happier. I think she's learning what really matters. Like how I learned that having more family doesn't mean having less love. Exactly like that. Emma was quiet for a moment. I'm glad she's learning. I like her better when she's happy. Me too, Bug. Daddy, do you think Uncle Michael is happy too? Marcus had been wondering the same thing. Michael's visits had become more frequent, and he seemed to genuinely enjoy spending time with Emma. But Marcus sometimes caught him looking wistful, as if he were thinking about something he couldn't have. I think Uncle Michael is happy to have found us. But he might be a little sad too. Why? Because he lives far away, and he doesn't get to see you as often as he'd like. Emma considered this seriously. Maybe he should move here too. Maybe he should. As if summoned by their conversation, Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from Michael. Big news. Call me when you get a chance. Marcus stepped into the hallway and dialed Michael's number. Marcus. I'm so glad you called. I have something to tell you. What's up? I got a job offer in Seattle. At Roosevelt Elementary, teaching 3rd grade. Marcus felt his heart rate increase. That's Emma's school. I know. I applied 3 weeks ago, and they called today. They want me to start after winter break. Michael, that's huge. Are you sure you want to uproot your whole life? What life? I live alone in a 1-bedroom apartment. I have no family in San Francisco, and I spend most of my free time thinking about Emma and when I'll get to see her again. But your career, your friends, I can teach anywhere. And as for friends, I've met more people I care about in the past 3 months in Seattle than I have in 3 years in San Francisco. Marcus found himself smiling. Emma's going to be thrilled. I hope so. I want to be the uncle who's actually present, not just the guy who visits occasionally. Have you told Victoria? She's the one who told me about the job opening. Apparently, she knows someone on the school board. Marcus laughed. Of course she does. Marcus, I want you to know that I'm not trying to crowd you or take over. I just want to be part of Emma's life in a real way. I know, and I think it's wonderful. Emma needs all the family she can get. The next morning, Marcus told Emma about Michael's job offer over breakfast. Her reaction was everything he'd expected and more. Uncle Michael is going to be my teacher? She squealed, jumping up and down in her chair. Not your teacher, but he'll be teaching at your school. Can I visit his classroom? Can I eat lunch with him? Can I show him to all my friends? Marcus laughed at her enthusiasm. We'll have to see what the school rules are. But yes, I think you'll get to see him a lot more. Emma's joy was infectious, and Marcus found himself looking forward to Michael's move. Having Emma's uncle nearby would provide another layer of support and family connection that had been missing from their lives. That afternoon, Victoria stopped by with house-hunting printouts and a determined expression. I found 3 places in the neighborhood that might work, she announced, spreading the papers across the kitchen table. Emma climbed onto a chair to look at the listings. This one has a big backyard, she said, pointing to a photo. That's the one I like best too, Victoria said. It's only 4 blocks from here, and it has a guest room where you could sleep over sometimes. Really? I could sleep over at your house? If your daddy says it's okay. Emma looked at Marcus with pleading eyes. Can I, Daddy, please? Marcus felt the familiar tug of protective instincts, but he also saw the genuine affection between Emma and Victoria. I think that could be arranged. There's something else, Victoria said, pulling out another set of papers. I've been thinking about Emma's education. Marcus felt his stomach tighten. What about it? Roosevelt Elementary is a good school. But there are some private schools in the area that might offer more opportunities. Arts programs, smaller class sizes, that sort of thing. Victoria, I can't afford private school, I know. But Emma's trust fund can. It's set up specifically to cover educational expenses. Marcus felt the familiar wave of inadequacy. I don't know anything about private schools. Neither. Do the first, but we could learn together. We could visit some schools, see what they offer, and let Emma help decide. Emma looked up from the house listings. What's private school? It's a school where there are fewer kids in each class and they have special programs for things like art and music, Victoria explained. Would I still see my friends from Roosevelt? You'd make new friends, but you could still see your old friends too. Emma considered this seriously. Would Uncle Michael still be my uncle if I went to a different school? Of course, Victoria said. Family doesn't change because you go to a different school. Then I want to see the schools. But I don't want to decide until I know more. Marcus marveled at his daughter's practical approach to such a big decision. That sounds like a good plan. That evening, after Victoria had left with promises to schedule school visits, Marcus sat with Emma on the couch, reading her bedtime story. Daddy, do you think I should go to private school? I think you should go to whatever school will make you happiest and help you learn the most. But what if the kids at private school are different from me? Marcus set down the book and looked at his daughter. What do you mean? What if they're all rich and I'm not? What if they don't like me because I live in a small apartment and my daddy drives a truck? Marcus felt his heart break. Emma, you are rich. You have a trust fund and an inheritance that most people could never imagine. But I don't feel rich. I feel like regular me. That's because you are regular you. Money doesn't change who you are on the inside. Emma was quiet for a moment. But what if the other kids can tell I'm different? Then you'll show them that different doesn't mean worse. You'll show them that being kind and smart and funny is more important than where you live or what your daddy does for work. Do you think they'll like me? Marcus pulled Emma into his lap. I think they'll love you. Because you're impossible not to love. Emma smiled and snuggled against his chest. I love you too, Daddy. As Marcus finished reading the story, he thought about the changes that were coming. Victoria moving to the neighborhood, Michael starting work at Emma's school, possibly transitioning to private school. Their small, simple life was becoming something much more complex. But watching Emma's face as she listened to the story, seeing the confidence and joy that radiated from her, Marcus realized that maybe complex wasn't bad. Maybe Emma was growing into the person she was meant to be, supported by a family that loved her unconditionally. The storm that had started with Victoria crying in her car had turned into sunshine, bringing with it new possibilities and new ways of being a family. And Marcus was finally ready to embrace all of it. Outside, Seattle's autumn rain began to fall, but inside their small apartment, surrounded by the warmth of love and the promise of tomorrow, Marcus Chen held his daughter close and felt grateful for every twist and turn that had brought them to this moment. The future was uncertain, but it was bright with possibility. And that, Marcus thought, was exactly what Emma deserved. The snow fell softly outside the windows of Rose Morrison's house on Christmas morning, transforming the garden into a winter wonderland that seemed straight out of a fairy tale. Emma pressed her face against the bay window in the living room, watching the flakes dance in the morning light. It's like the whole world is wearing a wedding dress, she whispered to herself, a phrase she'd picked up from a book Victoria had read to her. Marcus stood in the doorway, coffee cup in hand, marveling at how natural Emma looked in this grand house. 6 months ago, he would have felt out of place in such elegant surroundings. Now with Victoria's touches everywhere and Emma's artwork displayed proudly on the antique sideboard, it felt like home. Merry Christmas, Bug, he said, settling beside her on the window seat. Merry Christmas, Daddy. Do you think Santa found me here instead of at our apartment? Marcus smiled. I think Santa is pretty good at tracking down little girls, no matter where they are. Victoria appeared in the doorway, still in her pajamas and robe, her hair messy from sleep. The sight of her looking so relaxed and domestic still surprised Marcus sometimes. The polished CEO had been replaced by someone softer, more genuine. "Good morning, you two. Ready for the Morrison family's first official Christmas?" Emma bounced off the window seat. "Yes. Can we open presents now? Let's wait for Uncle Michael. He should be here any minute." As if summoned by her words, the doorbell rang. Emma ran to answer it, followed by Marcus and Victoria. Michael stood on the porch, arms full of wrapped packages and wearing a Christmas sweater that was so ugly it was charming. "Uncle Michael." Emma threw herself into his arms, nearly knocking him over. "Hey there, Butterfly. Merry Christmas. I love your sweater. It has a reindeer with a light-up nose. I figured if I'm going to be the fun uncle, I need to look the part." They gathered in the living room around the enormous Christmas tree that Victoria had insisted on having professionally decorated. But Emma's handmade ornaments hung proudly alongside the expensive ones, and Marcus's simple star topper crowned the tree instead of the elaborate angel the decorator had suggested. "Before we open presents," Victoria said, settling cross-legged on the floor beside Emma, "I want to tell you all something." Marcus felt his stomach tighten. Victoria's serious tone reminded him of that night in the diner when she'd first revealed Emma's connection to her family. "I've been doing a lot of thinking lately about what family means," Victoria continued, her voice steady but emotional. "For most of my life, I thought family was about blood, about sharing DNA, and having the same last name. But this year, I've learned that family is about choice. It's about the people who show up for you, who love you unconditionally, who make you feel like you belong." Emma nodded solemnly. "Like how Daddy chose me even though I wasn't his baby. Exactly like that. And Marcus, you chose to stop your truck that night and help a stranger. You chose to welcome Michael and me into Emma's life. You chose to trust us with the most precious thing in your world." Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. "Victoria, I'm not finished. Michael, you chose to uproot your entire life to be closer to your niece. You chose to be the uncle who's present, not just the one who sends birthday cards." Michael smiled, his own eyes glistening. "Best choice I ever made." "And Emma," Victoria turned to the little girl who was listening with rapt attention, "you chose to open your heart to two strangers who claimed to be your family. You chose to trust us, to love us, to make room for us in your life." Emma climbed into Victoria's lap. "I like choosing family. It feels more special than just getting it. It is more special. And that's why I have something to ask all of you." Victoria reached under the tree and pulled out a small wrapped box. "This isn't a Christmas present exactly. It's more of a proposal." She opened the box to reveal 3 matching bracelets, each with a small butterfly charm identical to the one Emma wore from her grandmother. "I want us to be an official family. Not just people who love each other, but people who choose each other every day. I want us to have a symbol that reminds us we belong together." Emma picked up one of the bracelets, examining it with the serious concentration she brought to all important matters. "Like a team uniform?" "Like a team uniform," Victoria agreed. Marcus took one of the bracelets, feeling the weight of the moment. "Victoria, this is beautiful, but are you sure?" "Being Emma's family means being in this for the long haul. Through tantrums and teenage years and all the messy parts of raising a child. I've never been more sure of anything in my life." Michael reached for the 3rd bracelet. "Count me in. I want to be Emma's uncle for all of it." Emma held up her wrist where her grandmother's bracelet caught the morning light. "Can I wear both? One from Grandma Rose and one from our family?" "I think that's perfect," Victoria said, fastening the new bracelet beside the old one. As they exchanged bracelets, Marcus felt something shift in his chest. For years he'd been Emma's sole protector, her only constant. Now he was part of something bigger, something that would surround Emma with love and support in ways he'd never imagined possible. "Now can we open presents?" Emma asked, and the solemnity of the moment dissolved into laughter. The morning passed in a blur of wrapping, paper, and exclamations of delight. Emma received art supplies from Victoria, science kits from Michael, and a bicycle from Marcus that she'd been hinting about for months. But her favorite gift was a photo album Victoria had compiled, filled with pictures of their family over the past 6 months. "Look, Daddy, that's from when we went to the zoo. And this one is from my school play. And here's Uncle Michael teaching me how to make paper airplanes." Marcus flipped through the pages, seeing their story unfold in photographs. Emma's birthday party, their first Thanksgiving together, weekend trips to the park, quiet evenings, reading together. Victoria had documented their journey from strangers to family. "This is incredible, Victoria. How did you get all these pictures?" "I've been taking them whenever we're together. I wanted to make sure Emma would have memories of how we became a family." "Can we take one now?" Emma asked. "A Christmas morning picture for the album?" They arranged themselves around the tree, Emma in the center with Marcus and Victoria on either side and Michael behind them. As Victoria set the camera timer, Emma reached for Marcus's hand. "I love our family," she said simply. "I love our family too," Marcus replied, and meant it more than he'd ever meant anything. Later that afternoon, while Emma was napping and Michael was in the kitchen preparing Christmas dinner, Marcus and Victoria sat in the study, sharing a bottle of wine and watching the snow continue to fall. "I keep thinking about that night," Victoria said quietly, "when you found me crying in my car. I was so lost, so convinced I was alone in the world. You weren't alone, you just didn't know it yet. I was angry at first, you know. Angry at my parents for separating Violet. And me, angry at Sarah for keeping Emma away from my mother. Angry at myself for not finding them sooner." Marcus nodded. "Anger is easier than grief sometimes. But then I realized that anger was just another kind of loneliness. It was keeping me isolated, keeping me from the family I'd found." "What changed?" Victoria smiled, gesturing toward the living room where Emma's laughter could be heard as she played with Michael. "She did. Emma changed everything. She taught me that family isn't about the past, it's about the future. It's about the choice to keep showing up for each other. She's pretty wise for a 6-year-old. She gets that from her dad." Marcus felt a warmth spread through his chest. "Victoria, I need to tell you something. When I first found out about Emma's inheritance, about her connection to your family, I was terrified. I thought I was going to lose her, and now I realize I was thinking about it all wrong. I didn't lose Emma to your family. I gained a family of my own." Victoria reached over and squeezed his hand. "Marcus, you saved us all. You saved me from a life of loneliness. You saved Michael from wondering if he'd ever have a family, and you saved Emma from growing up without knowing her history. I didn't save anyone, I just did what felt right. That's what makes you a hero." As evening approached, they gathered around the dining room table for Christmas dinner. Michael had outdone himself, preparing a feast that would have impressed any restaurant. Emma sat between Marcus and Victoria, chattering about her presents and making plans for the next day. "Can we build a snowman tomorrow?" she asked. "And can we make hot chocolate with the real marshmallows?" "We can do whatever you want," Victoria said. "It's Christmas vacation. I want to do family things, like watch movies and play games and just be together." Marcus looked around the table at the faces of the people who had become his family. 6 months ago, he'd been a single father struggling to provide for his daughter. Now he was part of something bigger, something that would last long after. Emma was grown. "I have an announcement," Michael said, setting down his fork. "I've been thinking about what Victoria said this morning about choosing family, and I've decided to make it official." He pulled out a folded document from his jacket pocket. "I've been working with a lawyer to change my last name, from Torres to Morrison. I want to share Emma's family name." Emma's eyes widened. Really? You want to have the same name as me? I want to be officially part of this family. And Morrison was your grandmother's name, so it connects all of us. Victoria wiped tears from her eyes. Michael, that's beautiful. But are you sure? You're giving up your father's name. I'm choosing my real family's name. The Torres family gave me life, but the Morrison family gave me love. Marcus felt overwhelmed by the gesture. What about you, Victoria? Are you keeping Morrison? I've been Morrison my whole life. It's Emma's family name too, through her. Grandmother, I think it's perfect that we all share it. Emma looked thoughtful. What about Daddy? Does he get to be a Morrison too? The question hung in the air, and Marcus felt his heart racing. He'd been Marcus Chun for 34 years. But looking at Emma's hopeful face, at Victoria and Michael's expectant expressions, he realized that names were just words. Family was what mattered. I think, he said carefully, that I'd be honored to be a Morrison. Emma clapped her hands. Yes, now we'll all match. As they finished dinner and moved to the living room to watch Christmas movies, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought them here. A year ago, he'd been a lonely widower raising his daughter alone. Tonight, he was surrounded by family, by people who had chosen to love him and Emma unconditionally. Emma fell asleep during the second movie, curled up between Marcus and Victoria. On the couch, Michael covered her with a blanket, and they all sat in comfortable silence, watching the snow fall outside the windows. I think, Victoria whispered, this is what happiness feels like. I think you're right, Marcus replied. Later, as they prepared to leave for the apartment, Emma stirred in Marcus's arms. Daddy, do we have to go home tonight? This is home. Now too, Bug, we can stay here whenever you want. Emma smiled sleepily. I like having two homes. And I like having a big family. Me too, sweetheart, me too. As they walked through the snow to Marcus's truck, Emma's new bracelet caught the light from the street lamps. She held up her wrist, admiring the way the butterfly charm matched the one her grandmother had left her. Daddy, do you think Grandma Rose would be happy about our family? Marcus helped her into the truck, thinking about the woman who had loved Emma from afar, who had set up trust funds and saved photographs, and dreamed of the day she might hold her granddaughter. I think she'd be very happy. I think she'd be proud of all of us, even though it took us a long time to find each other. Especially because of that. The best things in life are worth waiting for. As they drove through the quiet streets of Seattle, Emma chattering about their Christmas day and making plans for tomorrow, Marcus felt a peace he'd never experienced before. He'd spent years trying to be everything Emma needed, trying to fill the roles of mother and father, family and friend. Now he realized he didn't have to be everything. He just had to be himself and let the family they'd chosen together fill in the rest. The snow continued to fall, blanketing the city in white, as Marcus Chun drove his daughter home to their small apartment. Tomorrow they would wake up and continue building their life together, supported by the family they'd found. In the most unexpected way. It had started with a woman crying in her car on a rainy night, and it had led to this. A family bound not by blood but by choice, not by obligation, but by love. And Marcus knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The storm had passed, and in its wake, something beautiful had grown. A family, a future, a love that would last a lifetime. As Emma drifted off to sleep in the passenger seat, her new bracelet catching the light from the dashboard, Marcus smiled and drove toward tomorrow, carrying with him the certainty that some stories don't end. They just begin again, richer and more beautiful than before. The single dad who had found a CEO crying in her car had discovered something far more valuable than money or success. He had found his family, and his family had found him. And in a world that often felt broken and divided, that was everything. Spring arrived in Seattle with a burst of cherry blossoms and the promise of fresh starts. Marcus stood in the backyard of Victoria's new house, watching Emma chase butterflies through the garden while Michael pushed her on the swing set they'd installed together last weekend. "Higher, Uncle Michael. I want to touch the clouds." "You're going to fly right over the fence at this rate." Michael laughed, giving her another gentle push. Victoria emerged from the house carrying a pitcher of lemonade and wearing jeans with grass stains on the knees. 6 months ago, Marcus never would have imagined seeing her looking so beautifully ordinary. "The adoption papers came through," she said quietly, settling beside him on the porch steps. Marcus felt his breath catch. "Really? Really? As of today, Emma Morrison Chun is officially your daughter in every legal sense." They had decided to hyphenate Emma's name, honoring both her biological family and the man who had raised her. It felt like the perfect compromise, a symbol of how their unconventional family had come together. "Daddy, Aunt Victoria. Come see what I found," Emma's voice carried across the yard. They walked over to find her crouched beside a butterfly that had landed on a flower. Its wings were orange and black, marked with delicate patterns that seemed to shimmer in the sunlight. "It's a monarch," Emma whispered. "They migrate thousands of miles to find their home, just like we did," Victoria said softly. Emma looked up at the 3 adults surrounding her. "Do you think it knows where it belongs?" "I think it knows exactly where it belongs," Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. The butterfly lifted off, circling once around their little group before disappearing over the fence. Emma watched it go with a peaceful smile. "I know where I belong too," she said simply. That evening, as they sat around the dinner table in Victoria's cozy kitchen, Emma made an announcement that surprised them all. "I want to have a party," she declared, taking a careful bite of her spaghetti. "What kind of party?" Michael asked. "A family party, to celebrate that we all found each other." Victoria exchanged glances with Marcus. "That's a wonderful idea. What did you have in mind?" Emma's eyes lit up. "We could invite Mrs. Rodriguez from our old building, and my teacher, and maybe some of the kids from my class so they can meet my whole family." "Your whole family?" Marcus repeated. "You, Aunt Victoria, Uncle Michael, and me. We're complete now." Later that night, after Emma had gone to bed, the 3 adults sat on the front porch watching the stars emerge in the clear sky. "I keep thinking about that night," Victoria said. "When you found me crying in my car, I felt so broken, so alone." "You weren't alone," Marcus said. "You just didn't know it yet. I was angry for so long. Angry at my parents, at Sarah, at the world for keeping us apart. But Emma taught me something important." "What's that?" "That love isn't about the time you've lost. It's about the time you choose to share," Michael nodded. "She's wise beyond her years. She gets that from her dad," Victoria said, smiling at Marcus. 2 weeks later, they held Emma's family party in the backyard. The cherry tree was in full bloom, creating a canopy of pink and white petals that drifted down like confetti. Emma wore a yellow dress and her grandmother's butterfly bracelet, greeting each guest with the pride of someone showing off her greatest treasure. "This is my daddy," she told her classmates. "He found me when I was a baby and decided to keep me forever. And this is my Aunt Victoria. She runs a big company, but she makes the best pancakes in the world. And this is my Uncle Michael. He's my teacher's friend, and he knows everything about dinosaurs." Marcus watched his daughter navigate the party with confidence and joy, introducing her chosen family to her friends and teachers. Mrs. Rodriguez, his former neighbor who had babysat Emma countless times, pulled him aside. "She's happy," the elderly woman said simply. "Really, truly happy." "You did good, Marcus." "I had help," he replied, gesturing toward Victoria and Michael, who were engaged in animated conversation with Emma's teacher about her progress in school. The best families usually do. As the sun began to set, the guests gradually departed. leaving the four of them to clean up the remnants of the celebration. Emma helped collect paper plates and cups, chattering about her favorite moments from the party. "Did you see how surprised Mrs. Patterson was when she met Uncle Michael? She didn't know he was my uncle and her new co-worker. That was pretty." "Funny," Michael agreed, tying up a garbage bag. "And Madison said she wishes she had an aunt like Aunt Victoria, who knows about butterflies and business stuff." Victoria laughed. "I'm glad I made a good impression." After Emma was tucked into bed, Marcus found himself alone with Victoria in the kitchen, washing dishes in comfortable silence. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't stopped that night?" Victoria asked. Marcus considered the question. "I think we would have found each other eventually. Emma has a way of bringing people together. Or maybe you do. Maybe we all do." Victoria dried her hands on a towel and turned to face him. "Marcus, I need to tell you something." His heart skipped. "What's that?" "I'm happier than I've ever been in my life. I spent 32 years thinking success meant climbing ladders and accumulating wealth. But real success is this." She gestured around the kitchen, where Emma's artwork hung on the refrigerator and family photos lined the windowsill. "It's having people who love you for who you are, not what you've accomplished." "Victoria, I'm not finished. You saved me that night, Marcus. Not just from a panic attack, but from a life of loneliness. You gave me a family when I didn't even know I needed one." Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. "You saved me too. All those years, I was so focused on being enough for Emma that I forgot we both needed more than just each other. And now I know that love multiplies. Having more people love Emma doesn't diminish my role in her life. It enhances it." Victoria stepped closer. "We make a good team. We do. All of us. You, me, Michael, Emma. We're proof that family isn't about blood or biology. It's about choice and commitment and showing up for each other." Marcus nodded, thinking about the journey that had brought them here. Emma's party was perfect. She looked so proud introducing everyone to her family. She should be proud. Look what she's accomplished. A 6-year-old girl managed to heal a broken family and create something beautiful from the pieces. She's pretty amazing. She gets that from her dad. As they turned off the lights and prepared to say goodnight, Marcus felt a profound sense of gratitude. The scared, lonely man who had found a crying woman in her car 9 months ago had been transformed. By love, by choice, by the simple act of saying yes to family. The next morning, Emma woke up early and climbed into bed between Marcus and Victoria, a tradition that had developed over the months they'd been spending more time together. "Good morning, sleepyhead," Victoria said, smoothing Emma's hair. "Good morning. Are you happy about the party?" "I'm happy about everything," Victoria replied. "I'm happy about our family." Emma snuggled deeper between them. "Me too. I used to think family was just you and me, Daddy, but now I know it's bigger than that." "How much bigger?" Marcus asked. Emma thought for a moment. "As big as love can stretch, and love can stretch really, really far." Later that day, as they walked through the neighborhood toward the park, Emma skipped ahead while the adults followed at a leisurely pace. "I have something for you," Victoria said, pulling a small wrapped package from her purse. Marcus opened it to find a keychain with a small butterfly charm. "What's this for?" "The key to my house. I want you to have it. I want you to know that this is your home too, whenever you need it." Marcus felt overwhelmed by the gesture. "Victoria, I don't know what to say. Say you'll keep being the incredible father you are. Say you'll let us be part of Emma's life forever. Say you'll trust that we're all in this together." "I can definitely say all of that." Emma ran back to them, breathless with excitement. "There's a butterfly garden at the park. Can we go see it?" "Of course we can," Victoria said. "Lead the way." As they walked through the garden, surrounded by flowers and butterflies, Emma pointed out each species with the knowledge she'd gained from her books and conversations with Victoria. That's a painted lady, and that's a cabbage white, and look, there's another monarch. They watched the monarch circle above them, its wings catching the sunlight. Do you think it's the same one from our backyard? Emma asked. Maybe, Marcus said. Or maybe it's a friend who came to visit. Emma nodded solemnly. I like having visitors. It means people want to be where we are. As they headed home, Emma walking between Marcus and Victoria with her hands in theirs, Michael joining them from his apartment nearby, Marcus reflected on the unexpected gift of this found family. A year ago, he'd been a single father doing his best to raise his daughter alone. Tonight, he was part of something bigger, something that would surround Emma with love and support for the rest of her life. The woman who had been crying in her car that rainy night had become the aunt who read bedtime stories and attended school plays. The stranger from San Francisco had become the uncle who knew exactly how to make Emma laugh. And the scared, lonely man had become the father who was brave enough to let his daughter's family grow. As they reached Victoria's house, Emma looked up at the three adults who had become her world. I love our family, she said simply. We love our family too, they replied in unison. And in that moment, as the sun set over Seattle and the cherry blossoms drifted down around them, Marcus knew that some stories don't end with happily ever after. They begin with it. The single dad who had found a CEO crying in her car had discovered that the most precious things in life can't be planned or purchased. They can only be chosen, nurtured, and cherished. Their family had been born from a moment of compassion on a rainy night, and it would continue to grow and evolve with each choice they made to love each other unconditionally. That was enough. That was everything. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.